The great ship was called the Starlight Beacon. It was the heart of the Galactic Union's premier xenocombat training academy. It was a place of learning for the best warriors from 1,000 different stars. The halls of the beacon were wide and clean, shining with a soft blue light. Strange symbols, the written languages of many species, glowed on the walls. This was where Jin and Hana now found themselves. They were humans, the newest members of the Galactic Union. To everyone else, they were soft. They had no hard shells, no sharp claws, no natural armor. Their technology was seen as simple and loud. They were curiosities. As they walked through the main hallway, other cadets moved around them. A large Vorgon, covered in thick green scales, brushed past Jin without a word. Its sheer size made the floor vibrate. A group of Braxians stood to the side. Their skin was like clear crystal catching the light. They chittered softly to each other, their many glassy eyes following the two humans. Hana could feel their gaze. It was not a friendly one. "Are they always going to stare?" Hana muttered to Jin, keeping her voice low. Jin did not look at the aliens. His eyes were calm, taking in everything. He watched how the Vorgon moved, all power and weight. He saw how the Braxians stood, light and balanced on their feet. "Let them stare," he said quietly. "It is better than being ignored." Hana frowned. She was tired of being treated like a child. On Earth, they were among the best soldiers. Here they were beginners. Their first class of the day was combat theory. The room was a large circle with seats rising up all around. The teacher was a Braxian named Instructor Valar. His voice was like the sound of tiny bells. "Today we discuss the finality of direct assault," Valar said. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a warrior in heavy armor, a bright energy shield glowing around it. Modern, personal, shielding, powered by microfusion cells, can withstand all but the most powerful directed energy weapons. The age of the blade, the fist, the club. It is over. To attempt close combat is futile. Hana's hand shot up. "Instructor, what about unpredictability? A shield might stop a plasma bolt, but it can't stop a warrior who is already inside its guard." Valar's crystal head tilted. It was a gesture of polite dismissal. "A noble thought, Cadet Hana. But theory and practice are different. To get inside the guard of a shielded opponent is to enter a zone of extreme danger. Their physical strength alone would be fatal to a species of your density." He did not say the word fragile, but everyone heard it. A soft wave of clicks and chitters, the laughter of other species, went through the room. Hana's face grew warm. She sat down, her hands clenched into fists on her lap. Jin, sitting beside her, did not react. He simply watched the hologram, his expression unreadable. Later they went to the mess hall. It was a vast space filled with the smells of food from 100 different worlds. Some smells were pleasant, like cooking spices. Others were sharp and strange. Jin and Hana got their food, a simple paste that was nutritionally perfect for humans but tasted like nothing. They found a small table in a corner. At a much larger table nearby, a group of cadets was eating. Trainer Kale was with them. He was the Vorgon CQC instructor, a mountain of muscle and scale. His laugh was a deep rumbling sound. "And their ships," one of the other Vorgons was saying. "They use controlled explosions to move through space. So primitive." Kale shook his large head. "Do not underestimate their spirit, but their methods. They are children playing at war. They have no finesse, no tradition. Their bodies are soft. Their bones break easily." He took a large bite from a hunk of purple meat. "They rely on loud noises and pieces of metal thrown at high speed. It is a crude way to fight." Hana stared down at her food paste, her appetite gone. "They're talking about us," she whispered angrily. "They think we're jokes." Jin took a slow bite of his paste. He chewed thoughtfully. "They see what they expect to see," he said. "It is not our problem." "How can you be so calm?" Hana asked, her voice tight. "They look at us and they see weakness." "Let them," Jin replied. His eyes were still calm, but there was a sharpness in them now, like a hidden knife. A tree that bends in the wind does not break. From another table, a cadet with fine gray feathers watched them. Her name was Sumin. She was a Relorian, a bird-like species known for their sharp eyesight. While the others laughed, she watched Jin. She saw how he held himself. He was not slouching in shame. He was perfectly still, like water in a deep pool. He did not fidget or get angry. He simply observed. Sumin found that very interesting. The loud ones, the braggarts, were easy to understand. This quiet human was a mystery. The day continued with a tour of the training facilities. They saw the plasma range where bolts of superheated energy shot at holographic targets. They saw the zero-gravity combat room, where cadets learned to fight in the silence of space. Everything was advanced, clean, and technological. Finally, they were shown the main gymnasium for close-quarters combat. It was a huge, open space with mats on the floor. The walls were lined with racks of weapons. There were vibroblades that could cut through metal. There were plasma tonfas that could stun a giant. There were force staves that could create a shield of energy. Trainer Kale stood in the center of the room, his arms crossed. "This," his voice boomed, "is where you learn the art of personal combat, where you learn to use your body and the tools we give you to defeat any enemy." His yellow eyes scanned the group of new cadets, lingering for a moment on Jin and Hana. Strength, discipline, power. These are the pillars of true combat. Jin looked at the racks of glowing, humming weapons. Then his eyes drifted away. He looked at the simple supports holding up the ceiling. He looked at the seams in the floor mats. He looked at the plain, unadorned walls. He was not impressed by the glowing blades. He was looking at everything else. As the group was leaving the gym, Hana let out a frustrated sigh. "Did you hear him? Strength, discipline, power?" He might as well have said, "Be big and hit hard." "There's no art to it." "There is always art," Jin said softly. "But not everyone has the eyes to see it." They walked back towards their living quarters. The hallway was quieter now. The other cadets had mostly dispersed. The only sound was the low hum of the ship's engines and the soft tap of their boots on the floor. Hana looked at her friend. "What are you thinking, Jin? You always get that look." Jin stopped walking and looked out a large observation window. The stars, sharp and bright, streaked by as the ship traveled faster than light. "I am thinking," he said, "that a warrior who only knows how to use a sword will be lost without one. But a warrior who knows how to use anything, that warrior is never truly unarmed." Hana followed his gaze to the stars. She felt a little better. Jin saw the world differently. He always had. On Earth, during their training, he had been the same. While others practiced with rifles, he would practice with sticks and stones. He saw potential where others saw junk. Back in the gym, the janitorial droid finished its work. It was a simple machine on wheels. It wiped the mats clean with a soft cloth and then put its tools away. One of those tools was a long, polished polymer mop handle with a cleaning pad on the end. The droid stored it in a closet and rolled away. The gym was now empty and silent, waiting for the next day's lessons. No one gave the mop a second thought. It was just a tool for cleaning. It was not a weapon. The next morning, the air in the gymnasium felt heavy and still. The bright overhead lights shone down on the clean blue mats. The new cadets stood in a loose group. They were all different shapes and sizes. The Vorgons were tall and strong. The Braxians were slender and their crystal skin sparkled. The Relorians, like Sumin, stood light on their feet. Jin and Hana stood near the back. Trainer Kale stood before them. He was even bigger in the light of the gym. His green scales looked like armor. His yellow eyes moved over the cadets one by one. "Welcome," his voice rumbled through the quiet room. "This is where you will learn to fight. Not with ships, not with plasma rifles. Here you learn with your body and with the weapons in your hands." He walked over to the wall of weapons. He picked up a force staff. It was a long metal pole. With a click, a shield of blue energy shimmered at one end. This, Kale said, is a tool of modern war. It can block. It can strike. He swung the staff through the air. It made a humming sound. The cadets watched, impressed. Kyle put the staff back. He turned to face them. The Galactic Union has many ways of fighting. But the best way is simple. Be strong, be direct. Overwhelm your enemy with power. He pointed a thick finger at a large Vorgon cadet. You step forward. The cadet stepped onto the mat. Kale faced him. I will demonstrate the Vorgon power lock. It is a hold that ends fights. Kale moved fast for his size. He grabbed the cadet's arm and shoulder. He twisted his body. In one smooth motion, he lifted the cadet into the air. The cadet was huge, but Kale held him there easily. The cadet struggled but could not move, do you see? Kale said, his voice calm. Strength and technique. Together they are unstoppable. He gently put the cadet down. The cadet nodded, a look of respect on his face. Kale's eyes scanned the group again. They passed over the Vorgons. They passed over the Braxians. They landed on the two humans. The Galactic Union is rich with different species, Kale said. Each has its own way of battle. Part of our training is to learn from this diversity. He said the last word slowly, as if it left a strange taste in his mouth. His gaze fixed on Jin. You, human Jin, step onto the mat. A quiet murmur went through the cadets. Hana felt her stomach tighten. She looked at Jin. His face was calm, but she saw the slight tension in his shoulders. Jin walked forward. He stepped onto the blue mat. He stood facing Trainer Kale. He looked very small next to the huge Vorgon. Your species is new to the Union, Kale said loudly, for everyone to hear. We have heard stories. Stories of human brawling, of your primitive close-quarter fights. He waved a hand around the gym, at the advanced weapons on the walls. We have technology. We have shields. We have tradition. But we are here to learn. So, show us. Jin just looked at him. He did not speak. Show us the famous human way of fighting, Kyle repeated. His tone was not a request. It was an order. It was a command to perform, to put on a show, to prove what the galaxy already thought it knew, that humans were backward, that their ways were simple and crude. Hana felt her face grow hot with anger. This was not a lesson. This was a display. They were putting Jin in a cage like an animal to be watched. Some of the other cadets were smiling now. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone about to see something funny. The Braxians chittered softly. The Vorgons crossed their arms, waiting for the joke. Sumin, the Rilorian, did not smile. She watched Jin closely. She saw how he stood. His feet were not planted wide like a Vorgon ready to charge. They were under his shoulders, light and ready to move. His hands were open at his sides, not clenched into fists. He was like a spring, coiled but not tense. Well, Kyle's voice broke the silence. We do not have all day. Demonstrate your human combat. Jin's eyes finally moved away from Kale's face. He looked around the gym. His gaze moved past the rack of glowing vibroblades. It moved past the humming force staves. It moved past all the advanced, powerful weapons. His eyes stopped in the corner of the room. A janitorial droid was there. It was a simple machine, cleaning a small spill on the floor. In its claw, it held a tool. It was a long pole made of white, polished polymer. On one end was a soft, absorbent pad. A mop. Without a word, Jin walked away from Trainer Kale. He walked away from the center of the mat. He walked toward the cleaning droid. The quiet murmuring in the room stopped. Everyone watched, confused. What was he doing? Was he leaving? Was he giving up? Kale frowned. Human. The demonstration is here. Jin ignored him. He reached the droid. The machine beeped at him, a questioning sound. Jin looked at the mop in its claw. It was a simple, common object. Every ship in the galaxy had one. It was for cleaning. It was not for fighting. He reached out and took it. The droid beeped again and rolled away, its job done. Jin held the mop. It was light. He turned and walked back toward the center of the mat. He held the mop by its middle. The soft cleaning pad swung gently. A few cadets snorted, trying to hold in their laughter. This was the demonstration? He was going to clean the floor? This was even more pathetic than they had imagined. Trainer Kale's face showed a mix of annoyance and amusement. What is this? Have you misunderstood the task? This is a combat demonstration, not a cleaning lesson. Jin still did not speak. He stood calmly, holding the mop. He looked at Kale. Then he looked down at the mop handle in his hands. He moved. It was not a dramatic movement. It was fast and efficient. He lifted one end of the mop. He brought his knee up hard and sharp. He positioned the middle of the long polymer handle against his knee. Then, with a quick, powerful twist of his body, he snapped it. The sound was loud and sharp in the quiet gym. Crack. It was the sound of breaking plastic. It was a simple, common sound. But in that room, at that moment, it sounded like thunder. The long mop handle was now in two pieces. One piece was about 3 feet long. The other was 1.5 feet. The ends where it broke were sharp and splintered. Jin now held a broken tool in his hands. He was not holding it like a staff. He held the longer piece in his right hand like a short sword. He held the shorter, jagged piece in his left hand like a knife. He stood there holding 2 pieces of a broken mop. His stance was relaxed. He looked at trainer Kyle. His expression was calm. He was ready. The gym was completely silent. No one was laughing now. No one was smiling. The crack of the polymer had wiped all the amusement from their faces. They were confused. They were shocked. They were waiting. The silence in the gym was heavy. It was broken by a low rumbling sound. It was Trainer Kale laughing. He looked at the 2 pieces of broken plastic in Jin's hands. He shook his large, scaly head. "You are going to fight me," Kale said, his voice full of disbelief. "With that? With garbage?" Jin did not answer. He just stood there holding the broken pieces. His body was relaxed. Kyle tapped a control on his wrist. A shimmering blue field of energy appeared around his body. It was his personal shield. It hummed with power. "You see this, human? This is a Class 4 personal shield. It can stop a plasma bolt. It can stop a laser. Your little stick..." He laughed again. "Your little sticks cannot even touch me." Jin's eyes were not on the shield. They were on Kyle. He watched the way Kyle stood. He watched the way he held his weight. He saw the confidence in the Vorgon's posture. Kale believed he was completely safe. "Begin the demonstration," Kale ordered. He did not move from his spot. He waited for Jin to come to him. He was a fortress, and he expected the human to break against his walls. Jin moved. He did not run straight at Kale. He began to walk in a slow circle. His steps were light and quiet on the mat. He held the longer stick out in front of him, pointed at Kale. The shorter stick was held back close to his body. Kale turned slowly, following Jin's movement. A frown was on his face. "This is not a dance, human. Fight," Jin kept circling. He was patient. He was looking. He was waiting. With a grunt of impatience, Kale decided to end it. He lunged forward. It was a fast, powerful move. His large hand reached out to grab Jin. It was the same move he had used in his demonstration earlier. It was meant to grab and crush. Jin did not try to block the grab. He could not. The Vorgon's strength was too great. Instead, he flowed to the side. He moved like water around a rock. Kyle's big hand closed on empty air. As Jin moved, his right arm snapped forward. The longer piece of the mop handle whipped through the air. It did not strike Kale's shielded body. It struck forward just as Kale was stepping. Thwack! The sharp sound of plastic hitting armor rang out. The stick hit Kale on the front of his knee. It did not hurt him. The armor on his leg was too strong, but it was a surprise. The hit was perfectly timed. It happened just as Kale's weight was coming down on that leg. It did not break the bone, but it broke his rhythm. Kale's step became clumsy for a split second. He grunted in annoyance. He swung his other arm, a wide, powerful blow that could have knocked Jin across the room. Jin was already moving. Instead of backing away, he moved closer. He stepped inside the arc of the swing. He was now very close to the huge Vorgon. He was inside the reach of Kale's long arms. Kale looked down, surprised. This human was right next to him. Jin's left hand moved. It was a short, sharp motion. He drove the jagged end of the shorter stick hard into Kale's side. He did not aim for the armored chest. He aimed for the softer spot under the arm where the scales met. There was no shield there. The shield was designed to stop energy weapons and high-speed projectiles. It was not designed to stop a slow, deliberate jab from a piece of plastic. The jagged end dug into the softer scale joint. Kale let out a sharp, pained hiss. It was not a serious injury. It was like a deep pinch. But it was a shock. This human had actually touched him. He had caused pain. Kyle jumped back, his eyes wide with anger and surprise. "You?" He snarled. The cadets watching were completely silent. Their mouths were open. They could not believe what they were seeing. The human had not been smashed. He had hit the trainer, twice. Hana watched, her hands pressed over her mouth. She felt a wild hope rising in her chest. Sumin's sharp eyes were wide. She saw it now. Jin was not trying to win a contest of strength. He was doing something else. He was disrupting. He was annoying. He was using the Vorgon's own size and power against him. Kale was now angry. This was no longer a joke. This was an insult. He charged again, this time faster, his fists swinging like heavy hammers. Jin became a ghost. He did not stand and fight. He moved, he slid to the side. He ducked under a swing. He stepped back just out of reach. Every time Kale moved, Jin was already not there. And every time Kale missed, Jin's sticks would flick out, thwack. The longer stick hit Kale's wrist, making his hand tingle. Tap, tap. The shorter stick jabbed quickly into the side of Kyle's thick neck. It was another unshielded spot, crack. The longer stick came down hard on the top of Kale's foot. None of these hits were powerful enough to cause real damage through the armor, but together they were like a storm of tiny cuts. They were frustrating. They were humiliating. Kale was a master warrior. He was being hit over and over by a human with a broken mop. He roared in frustration. He swung wildly, putting all his strength into a punch meant to end the fight. Jin saw the opening. As Kale's body leaned forward with the punch, Jin dropped low. He swept the longer stick in a sharp arc, hooking it behind Kyle's leading ankle. Then he pulled. It was not a strong pull. Jin was not strong enough to pull the Vorgon over. But he did not need to be. He used Kale's own forward momentum. The stick was just a guide. It tripped the foot that was already moving. Kale's eyes went wide. He was off balance. He tried to catch himself, but it was too late. He stumbled forward. His heavy body crashed down onto the mat. The whole floor shook. Before the dust could settle, before Kale could even think of getting up, Jin was on him. He did not jump on Kale's back. He did not try to hold him down. That would be impossible. He simply stood over the fallen giant. He held the shorter, jagged piece of the mop handle in his hand. He held it poised, its sharp, broken point hovering just a centimeter from Trainer Kale's eye. The shield did not protect his face. Kale lay on the mat, breathing heavily. He looked up. All he could see was the splintered end of the plastic stick, and behind it Jin's calm, unreadable face. The fight was over. The gym was so quiet you could hear the hum of the lights. No one moved. No one breathed. They all stared at the scene on the mat. Trainer Kyle, the mighty Vorgon warrior, lay on his back on the floor. Towering over him was the human Jin. In Jin's hand was the broken piece of the mop. Its sharp, jagged end was pointed right at Kale's eye. It was so close that if Jin moved his hand just a little, it would touch the soft surface of the eye. Kyle did not move. He stared up at the splintered plastic. His mind was racing, but his body was frozen. He knew his personal shield was useless. It was not designed to stop something that was already touching him. This piece of garbage, this broken tool, was a real threat. His own technology had been made irrelevant. Jin held the pose. His arm was perfectly steady. His face showed no anger, no pride, no excitement. It was as calm as still water. He was not looking at a defeated enemy. He was simply holding a position. The silence stretched. It felt like an hour, but it was only a few seconds. Then Jin moved. He did not drive the stick forward. He pulled it back. He took a slow step away from Kale, giving the big Vorgon space. He lowered the broken pieces of the mop to his sides. He stood there, waiting. Kyle slowly pushed himself up onto his elbows. He looked at Jin. The anger was gone from his face. The amusement was gone. In its place was a deep, powerful confusion. He had trained his whole life in the art of war. He knew every advanced weapon. He had studied the combat styles of a dozen species, but he had never ever seen anything like this. He got to his feet. The other cadets watched, waiting for his rage. They expected him to shout, to declare the demonstration void, to punish the human for his disrespect. Kyle did none of those things. He looked at the two pieces of plastic in Jin's hands. He looked at the simple broken mop handle. How? The word came out of Kale's mouth, quiet and rough. It was not a roar. It was a genuine question. Your sticks. They are nothing. They cannot break my armor. They cannot hurt me. Jin looked at the pieces in his own hands. They are not for breaking armor, he said. His voice was calm and clear in the silent room. They are for finding the spaces between the armor. He pointed with the longer stick to Kale's knee. I hit your leg not to break it. I hit it to make your step heavy. He pointed to Kale's side. I hit here not to make a deep wound. I hit here to make your arm feel weak. He pointed to Kale's neck, his foot, his wrist. Each hit was a small thing, a distraction, an annoyance. But many small things together can break a big thing. They can break your focus. They can break your balance. He looked up at Kale. The principle is not to break the shield. It is to make the shield useless, to make the one holding the shield irrelevant. Kyle stood perfectly still, listening. These were not the words of a primitive brawler. These were the words of a deep thinker, a strategist. You did not try to beat me, Kyle said, slowly understanding. You tried to dismantle me. Jin gave a small nod. A strong door is hard to break down, but no one guards the key that is left under the mat. He looked around the gym. He looked at the clean walls, the floor, the ceiling. A warrior who only knows how to use a sword will be lost without one. But a warrior who knows how to use anything. He held up the two broken pieces of the mop. That warrior is never truly unarmed. Any object can be a weapon. The environment is the arsenal. The words hung in the air. The cadets were still silent, but now their silence was one of thought, not shock. Hana felt a proud smile spread across her face. Sumin was nodding slowly to herself. She had been right. The quiet human was the most dangerous one here. Kale looked down at his own hands. He thought about his powerful fists, his advanced shield. He had believed they made him invincible. But this human with no armor and a broken cleaning tool had defeated him without throwing a single powerful punch. He looked back at Jin. The anger was completely gone. In its place was a new, deep respect. You have shown me something today, human Jin, Kale said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You have shown me a hole in our thinking. We rely too much on what we are given. We forget to use what is around us. He turned to face the other cadets. The demonstration is over. You are dismissed. Return to your quarters. Think about what you saw here today. The cadets began to move slowly and quietly. They filed out of the gym, casting looks back at Jin. The way they looked at him was different now. There was no laughter in their eyes. There was curiosity. There was wariness. There was respect. Soon only Jin, Hana, and trainer Kale were left in the big room. Kale walked over to where the two pieces of the broken mop lay on the floor. He bent down and picked them up. He felt the lightweight plastic. He ran a thick finger over the sharp, broken end. He looked at Jin. I would like to speak with you tomorrow, Kale said. In my office. There is much I wish to discuss, Jin nodded. I will be there. Kyle turned and walked away, still holding the two pieces of the broken mop. He did not look like a defeated warrior. He looked like a student who had just been given his first most important lesson. Hana rushed over to Jin. Jin! That was, I don't even have words. You were amazing. Jin let out a small breath. The calm mask slipped for a second and he looked tired. It was necessary, he said simply. It was more than necessary, Hana said, her voice full of excitement. You changed everything. Did you see their faces? Jin looked toward the door where the cadets had left. I saw, he said. But changing a look is easy. Changing a mind is harder. He started walking toward the exit and Hana walked beside him. For the first time since they had arrived on the Starlight Beacon, they did not feel like outsiders. They felt like they belonged, and it was all because of a broken mop handle. The next day, the story was everywhere. It moved through the ship like electricity. Cadets whispered about it in the mess hall. They talked about it in the corridors. The human, the mop, the defeat of trainer Kyle. No one had ever seen anything like it. Jin walked to his meeting with Kyle. The other cadets did not smirk at him now. They looked at him. Some looked away quickly when he glanced at them. Others gave him a small, respectful nod. The air around him had changed. He arrived at Kale's office. The door was open. Kale was sitting at his desk. On the desk, in a place of honor, lay the two pieces of the broken mop handle. Come in, Jin, Kale said. His voice was not a rumble anymore. It was quieter, more thoughtful. Close the door. Jin stepped inside and the door slid shut. The room was neat and orderly. There were holograms of different weapons on the walls. But the broken mop was the center of attention. Kale gestured to the pieces of plastic. "I have been thinking about your demonstration all night," he said. "I could not sleep. My whole life I have believed one thing. The strongest warrior wins. The best technology wins. But you showed me that this is not always true." He looked at Jin. "You used my strength against me. You used my size. You used my expectations. I was not fighting you. I was fighting myself, and you were just guiding me to my defeat." Jin nodded. "It is an old idea. We call it using an opponent's energy against them. Your people. They all know this?" Kale asked, his eyes intense. "Not all," Jin said. "It is a skill like any other. It must be learned and practiced. For a long time, my grandfather taught me. He was a teacher of these arts." Kyle leaned forward. "I want to learn," he said. The word seemed strange coming from the huge Vorgon. "And I want the other cadets to learn. Our way of fighting has a weakness. A big one. We rely on our gear. If our shields fail, if our weapons are lost, we are clumsy. We are like children." He pointed a thick finger at Jin. "You are never without a weapon." Kale stood up and started to pace. "I have already spoken to the head of the academy. I have proposed a new training module. It will be required for all cadets. I am calling it Improvised Weaponry and Asymmetric Engagement." He stopped and looked at Jin. "I want you to help me design it. I want you to help me teach it." Jin was silent for a moment. This was more than he had expected. "I am just a cadet," he said. "You are the only one who understands this," Kale replied. "A teacher is not about rank. It is about knowledge. You have the knowledge we need." Jin thought about it. He looked at the broken mop on the desk. He thought about Hana and the way the other cadets had looked at them. This was a chance. A chance to change more than just looks. A chance to change minds. "I will do it," Jin said. A few days later, the new module began. The first class was held in the main gym. The cadets stood on the mats looking confused. The racks of glowing weapons were covered with a cloth. In the middle of the room was a large table, but there were no weapons on it. There were ordinary objects: a standard-issue food tray, a data slate casing, a length of flexible conduit from the ship's engineering room, a heavy-duty cleaning cloth, a hydration pouch full of water. Trainer Kale stood before them. Jin stood beside him. "Cadets," Kale began, "for your entire training you have been taught to use the tools the Union gives you. Today we unlearn that. Today we learn to use the tools the universe gives you." He picked up the food tray. It was made of a light metal. "What is this?" he asked. A Braxian cadet spoke up. "It is for eating, trainer." "It is a shield," Kale said. He held it by its edge. "It is a striking surface. It can deflect a blow." He slammed the edge of the tray against a training post. It made a loud clang. He put the tray down and picked up the data slate casing. It was a flat, hard rectangle of plastic. "And this?" "It is for reading information," another cadet said. "It is a knife," Kyle said. He held it in his hand, demonstrating how its edge could be used to jab or slash at soft targets. If you hold it right, it can cause pain. It can make an enemy pull back. He then picked up the length of conduit. It was a flexible hose. "This moves water through the ship," he swung it. It whistled through the air. "This can wrap around an arm. It can trip a leg. It can be a whip." He looked at the group. "Your assignment is not to look at the tool. It is to look at its potential. What can it do? Not what it was made to do." He turned to Jin. "Cadet Jin will now demonstrate." Jin stepped forward. He walked to the table. He looked at the objects. He picked up the full hydration pouch. It was a soft, flexible plastic bag with water inside. He held it up. "What is this?" The cadets were silent. They knew the answer was not a water bag. Jin held it by the top. He swung it in a circle like a sling. The weight of the water made it heavy. "It is a club," he said. "The water inside gives it power." He let it thump against his own palm. It made a solid, sloshing sound. Then he changed his grip. He held it like a rock. "It is something to throw. It can distract an enemy." Finally, he held it out and squeezed. A jet of water shot out, surprising everyone. It can spray water into an enemy's eyes. For a moment, they cannot see. A moment is all you need. He put the pouch down. "The object does not matter. Your imagination is what matters." For the next hour, the cadets practiced. They were awkward at first. They did not know what to do with a food tray. They held the conduit like it was a strange animal. But Jin and Kale walked among them, giving suggestions. Hold the tray closer to your body. Use the slate like this for a quick jab. Step on one end of the cloth and pull to unbalance your partner. Slowly, they began to understand. It was a puzzle. It was a new way of seeing the world. The ship was no longer just a ship. It was a collection of thousands of potential weapons. Hana was working with a Vorgon cadet. She showed him how to use a rolled-up mat as a barrier. The Vorgon, who had once laughed at her, now listened carefully. Sumin was a natural. Her people were hunters. They understood using the environment. She quickly figured out how to use 2 food trays, one in each hand, to block and strike. At the end of the class, the cadets were tired, but their minds were buzzing. They looked at the walls, the floor, the ceiling with new eyes. Everything had a use. Everything had a purpose. Trainer Kale dismissed them. As they filed out, he stood with Jin, watching them go. You see? Kale said quietly. You have not just taught them how to fight. You have taught them how to see. Jin watched the cadets leave. He saw Hana laughing with Sumin. He saw the Vorgons looking at common objects with serious, thoughtful expressions. The lesson of the broken mop was spreading. Weeks turned into months. The story of the human and the mop handle became a legend on the Starlight Beacon. It was not just a story about a fight. It was a story about an idea. The new training module, Improvised Weaponry, was no longer a strange new class. It was a core part of the academy. Cadets were expected to be as skilled with a food tray as they were with a plasma rifle. The change was everywhere. In the mess hall, cadets no longer just ate. They looked at their utensils. They felt the weight of their cups. They noticed which tables were bolted down and which were not. The world was full of tools waiting to be used. In the corridors, they walked differently. They were more aware of their surroundings. They noticed the fire extinguishers on the walls. They saw the access panels on the ceilings. They were no longer just passengers on a ship. They were part of the ship, and the ship was part of them. Jin was no longer just Cadet Jin. He was an assistant instructor. He worked closely with Trainer Kale. The big Vorgon had become his strongest supporter. Kale often said that Jin had taught him more about real combat than 50 years of war. Hana thrived in the new environment. She was creative and fast. She became one of the top students in the improvised weapons class. She and Sumin became good friends. They would practice together for hours, finding new ways to use ordinary things. One day, the academy held its final graduation exercises. The last test was a complex simulation. The cadets were divided into teams. They were dropped into a mock-up of a damaged space station. Their mission was to reach the command center and disable a fake bomb. But there was a problem. Their advanced weapons and shields were disabled. The simulation was designed to test their new skills. They had only their wits and the junk they found on the station. Jin, Hana, and Kale watched from the control room. The screen showed the teams moving through the dark, broken corridors. One team, led by a Vorgon, was stuck. They faced a locked door. On a normal day, they would have blasted it open. But they had no blasters. They stood there confused. Look at them, Kale grumbled. They have forgotten the lesson already. On another screen, a different team was moving well. This team was led by Sumin. Hana was also on this team. They came to the same kind of locked door. Sumin did not stop. She looked around. She saw a loose pipe running along the ceiling. She pointed to it. A Braxian cadet climbed onto another cadet's shoulders. The Braxian's crystal fingers were delicate and strong. He twisted the pipe, working it loose from its brackets. Soon he had a long, heavy metal pipe. He did not use it to beat the door down. Instead, he and another cadet used it as a lever. They wedged it into the door frame. They pushed. With a groan of metal, the entire door frame bent and the door slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. In the control room, Kale smiled. Good. They are thinking. The teams moved deeper into the station. They faced more challenges. A blocked corridor. A broken bridge over a deep shaft. Each time, the cadets had to look at the junk around them and find a solution. They used wires from broken panels to make tripwires. They used reflective shards of glass to look around corners. They used a can of lubricant to make a floor slippery for the virtual enemies that attacked them. The team led by Sumin and Hana was the first to reach the command center. The fake bomb was there, its lights blinking, but a final security field blocked the way. It was a wall of shimmering energy. The team had nothing left. They had used all the junk they had collected. Hana looked around the room. Her eyes moved quickly. Then she saw it. A simple, ordinary chair. It was a standard-issue chair made of light metal and polymer. She walked over to it. She picked it up. She did not throw it at the energy field. That would not work. Instead, she turned it upside down. She pushed it legs first into the energy field. The second the metal legs touched the field, sparks flew. The energy field flickered wildly. It was not designed to handle a non-living conductive object being pushed through it. The system overloaded. With a loud pop and a smell of ozone, the energy field died. The way was clear. Suman rushed forward and entered the code to disable the bomb. The simulation was over. Their team had won. Back in the control room, Kale turned to Jin. He had a look of deep satisfaction on his face. "You see?" Kyle said. "The chair. It was not a weapon. It was a key." They saw the key. The graduation ceremony was held in the main hall. The head of the academy gave a speech. He talked about strength and honor. But then he talked about adaptability. He talked about the power of the mind. He called Jin to the stage. The room was full of cadets from many species. They all looked at Jin. He was still a small human. But no one saw him as small anymore. "The greatest strength a warrior can have," the head of the academy said, "is not in their arms. It is in their mind." Cadet Jin has reminded us of this ancient truth. He has made this academy stronger. He has made the Galactic Union stronger. He gave Jin a special award. It was not a medal or a trophy. It was a simple polished piece of white polymer. It was shaped like a broken mop handle mounted on a stand. The cadets did not cheer loudly. They stood up. They clapped or clicked or chittered in their own ways. It was a sound of deep universal respect. After the ceremony, Jin and Hana stood by a large window, looking out at the stars. "It's strange," Hana said. "All of this because you broke a mop." Jin smiled a little. It was a rare sight. "It was never about the mop," he said. "It was about the idea. The mop was just the way to show it." He looked at the starship around them. He thought of the cadets who were now looking at the universe in a new way. They would become officers. They would teach others. The idea would spread. The most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was not a plasma cannon or a force staff. It was a mind that could see a weapon in anything, a mind that could never be disarmed. The human had not shown them how to fight with a stick. He had shown them how to be free.